Hi everyone, my name is Sia Sharma and today I'm going to tell you a little about bacteriophages. So now, what is a bacteriophage? Bacteriophage is a virus and as the name suggests, it infects bacteria. There are different types of bacteriophages and they infect different types of bacteria. Think of it this way, for every single bacteria in the world, there is at least one bacteriophage which infects it. There are more bacteriophages than any other species in the world, and nearly 40% of the bacteria in the oceans are killed because of these bacteriophages. Bacteriophages are everywhere. We're like inhaling millions of them, and there are thousands and thousands of them on our skin. Fun fact, did you know that Ganga Jal is or Ganga water is actually full of bacteriophages? These bacteriophages are present in the water and they kill off the bacteria in the water. Since the bacteriophages don't harm the humans at all, this practically makes Ganga Jal almost bacteria free. So, bacteriophages are relatively small, and as they're viruses, they are smaller than bacteria. If you can see in this picture over here we have different types of viruses. Over here we have the bacteriophage at a size of 200 nanometers. Here we have the bacteria which is of the size 2000 nanometers. For those of you who don't know, nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter or 1 meter equals to 1 billion nanometers. Now let's look at the structure of the bacteriophage. The bacteriophage has a head, which is called the capsid, and inside the head is the genetic material of the bacteriophage, in this case, which is DNA. The head rests on the collar, and underneath the collar, there is a sheath. There's also a base plate to which the tail fibers or the legs are attached, and there are also these spikes over here. These spikes are kind of similar to the spikes on the coronavirus, also. And yeah, here is the legs or the tail fibers which are attached to the base plate. This is how a bacteriophage would look under the microscope, and here we can see the different parts like the head, the sheath, the tail fibers, etc. Here we can even see the spikes. So now how a bacteriophage actually injects into or infects the bacteria is that the tail fibers first it lands on the bacteria, then it injects its spikes to get a better grip on the bacteria. And just like in injection, it injects its DNA into the bacteria. Now here, obviously the bacteria has immune response to this. And if you want to check out that or learn more about it, you can always see my video. I've done another video on CRISPR-Cas9, which won the Nobel Prize recently. And I'll leave the link in the description below if you want to check it out. But anyways, there are two types of ways a bacteriophage can infect the bacteria, and this is a lytic cycle or lysogenic cycle. So now the lytic cycle. So what happens in this lytic cycle is that when the bacteriophage, it firstly, of course, it injects its DNA into the bacteria. Then what the bacteriophage does is, the DNA, what it does, it uses the bacteria's resources. And it uses these resources to create more bacteriophages. And it basically multiplies, kind of like it multiplies inside the bacteria itself. It forms completely many different type of bacteriophages. They form inside the bacteria itself. And when the bacteria is so full of these phages, it just bursts out. And these new bacteriophages go out to infect more bacteria. And this is basically how they reproduce and how they multiply. Another cycle is the lysogenic cycle. And what happens here is that instead of like the bacteria's DNA, it forces the DNA to the like bacteria to make its own parts. It actually, what it does is it gets connected into the bacteria's DNA itself. And when it gets connected, it doesn't do anything suddenly. It kind of remains like dormant and it doesn't do anything for a long time. As we know, of course, bacteria divide, And when they divide, this piece of the phage's DNA, it gets divided into the daughter cell itself. At a sudden time, at any time at all, this phage DNA can suddenly come out of the bacteriophage. And what this can do is this comes out of the bacteriophage and it again enters the lytic cycle and it starts making more bacteriophages again and bursts. So here, like the bacteriophage's DNA, it can just come out in all of the bacteria and it can kill all of the bacteria in a small amount of time. It should also be noted here that basically all of the viruses mostly they can enter this lytic cycle. So they'll go inside their host and then they'll reproduce, they'll multiply, and then they'll burst. But only very few viruses can enter this lysogenic cycle. So now let's talk about how we can actually use bacteriophages to our advantage. So recently there's been this thing called superbug bacteria. And what this actually is that it's basically a bacteria which has become, we can say, immune to antibiotics. And this is a big problem because we use antibiotics to kill the bacteria. And if this superbug bacteria is immune to the antibiotics, then how will we be able to kill this bacteria? Well, the answer to that is phage therapy. And what happens here in this phage therapy is that millions of bacteriophages are directly injected in the site of infection along with some antibiotics. So now, is injecting millions of viruses into our body really a good idea? Well, we know that bacteriophages don't harm the human cells at all, and they are excellent killers of bacteria. So, this is actually a really good idea. But another question comes in mind is that just like bacteria became immune to our antibiotics, will they not become immune to these bacteriophages? Well, the answer to that is the exact reason why antibiotics are also injected into the body along with the bacteriophages. So, now what happens here is that if the bacteria wants to become immune to these bacteriophages, then it has to let down its defenses for the antibiotics. So, then both ways the bacteria will get killed, whether it's by these bacteriophages or by the antibiotics. Well, that's all that I have to say today. I hope you stay safe and stay healthy, and thank you very much.